Okay. So, could deodon survive modern Africa today? Honestly, yes, but probably no for the competition, because the competition is very fierce even today. Um, Modern Africa, you know, is very competitive. We got lions, hyenas, wild dogs, leopards, and cheetahs. Um, Diet wise, though, well, I'll get into the competition, but when it comes to dieting, deodon would feast on grasses and nuts, berries, and other. Pretty much, it would feast on a lot of things since it's an omnivorous animal. Like we know of. As for the meat wise, deodon would scavenge carcasses, but deodon would also hunt zebras and wildebeest, Cape buffalo, possibly. If it had to, giraffes, probably. Of course, it would have to avoid the kicks of a giraffe, but it could knock a giraffe down to the ground. Just like with this one specimen, Meropis, a Calocathir, its shoulder was knocked, broken, that a deodon just hit it from behind or something and to the ground. It was a documentary clip from Prehistoric Predators, a Calocathir specimen, or in this case a Meropis specimen, that was attacked by a deodon. And pretty much just like hunting the camelids and the rhinos, the fleet-footed animals in Africa, would be its main sources of prey. Like, of course, like I said, zebras, wildebeests, Thompson's gazelles, even impala, eland, kudu, everything. Of course, that I don't think that it would not attack, of course, obviously an adult elephants or modern adult rhinos or hippos even. I mean, despite that, the rhinos today, of course, are much bigger than even deodon itself. I mean, like, a black rhino is like the fiercest rhino ever, so I don't see deodon attacking it. Maybe a sick individual, yeah, but a healthy individual black rhino, hell no. Same with a white rhino too. And even though that, yeah, deodon may have hunted rhinos before, but the rhinos back then were much more smaller and primitive. So, deodon's going to get its ass kicked. Hippos, possibly. I mean, the thing is that deodon was the size of a modern bison, or maybe a little bit heavier, like 2,000. So yeah, like 2,000 pounds, so 1 ton, or heavy as a modern bison. And hippos and rhinos of today are much more heavier than even a bison. So a deodon is not going to risk attacking these particular large animals. Uninjured rhinos or hippos, yes, possibly, but adults, no. And of course, youngsters would be easier targets, of course. Elephants would be a big challenge, of course. Deodon would just leave it alone. Even obviously, even if there's one in Musk, a deodon has to get the fuck out of there and fast before it gets itself killed. Obviously, it would target young individuals, maybe small subadults that were separated from the herd, possibly. But yeah, maybe. Yeah, but deodon would just hunt the flea-footed herbivores of today and the larger, avoid the large herbivores. Pretty much it would be like modern predators today in Africa. Usually target flea-footed herbivores and attack the young, inexperienced elephants, rhinos, and hippos. But yeah. For competition, I mean, well, with the predators, leopards and cheetahs, I mean, with leopards, they would target the youngsters, of course. And yes, leopards do have a similar build of some of the descendants of the saber-toothed cats, like Dinictus. Well, Dinictus is the size of a bobcat, but the body of a mini leopard, you could say, or some other. But of course, that a leopard would target the juveniles or the younger individual deodons, depending on the young specimen. Same with the cheetahs too. Obviously, an adolescent or a mature or an adult deodon would be way too much for them to tackle. You know, a leopard would just get the hell out of there, and same with a cheetah too. The pack animals, meanwhile, of course, like lions and hyenas and African hunting dogs, this gets very competitive for deodon, and since deodon did not hunt it in groups that we know of, it's going to have a hard time dealing with these pack animals, especially with lions. You know, I mean, with hyenas and wild dogs, they would just harass the giant hippo pig thing, even though that, yeah, entelodonts are not pigs, but whatever. They would just harass the poor animal, the deodon. Deodon would get its ass kicked by the hyenas and the wild dogs. Maybe depending on numbers, it would probably the packs would stay away from it, but like if it's a large pack, yeah. Lions would be a different story. I mean, yes, lions have been known to hunt down like deodon's relative, hippos and stuff like that. And lions also have been known to take animals that are around 2,000 pounds, like Cape buffalo and things like that. So, I mean, but honestly, but a deodon is kind of too much head-to-head combat, because a deodon has really big, massive, powerful jaws that could crush a lion or any of the predators. Of course, that a pride of lions and a clan of hyenas as well, would take down a deodon. Like, you would need the entire pride to take a deodon down. Even if you bring in one or two pride males. Yeah. And also, depending on numbers of lions, deodon would have a hard time with them, but it really depends on numbers with lions as well. So honestly, a deodon would have a bit of a fun time, but the competition would have been very fierce. Very, very fierce. Not to mention, like, deodon was the apex predator of the Oligocene to the Miocene epoch. Once when the Miocene began, or parts of the Miocene came around, deodon actually went extinct when bear dogs came around, and bear dogs were one of the ones that wiped out the deadon, I believe. I mean, it's been a while since I studied deadon, but I know that the climate changed during the Miocene epoch, and the arrival of bear dogs, anthocyanins, took over, and they outcompeted deodon, and deodon went extinct because of bear dogs and climate change, of course. And not to mention, bear dogs were very adaptable, and deodon wasn't like that, you know. But with modern Africa today, it would probably be the same outcome. It would survive for a little while, but the competition would have been extremely competitive for deodon. And honestly, that's pretty much it for it. I mean, maybe it would survive, maybe it wouldn't, but let me know in the comments. Would deodon survive modern Africa today, like the Serengeti in Tanzania, Botswana? Also, really depends on habitat as well. I almost forgot. I mean, deodon, back then, the Miocene in North America and White River Valley was very open plains, so yeah. And it was pretty warm back then, but the competitors, like the predators, it would be very hard for deodon. But let me know in the comments.